All right, I am Zach Gray. Welcome to the 11-Minute Marketer, Marketing Ideas Worth Sharing, and I am your host, Zach Gray from ClearFrame, where we build marketing funnels that turn curiosity into commitment. Today's guest is someone I am super excited to be with and whose work is making a meaningful difference across the country. He's Robert Beeson, founder of soloparent.org, a national movement built on one powerful belief that no one should face solo parenting alone. This hits home to me because I also am a single parent with 4 little kids. Robert's team has launched their resources in everything from churches to the U.S. military, providing real hope to families who need it most. Also, fun fact, and we'll get to this more, but before founding Solo Parent, Robert had a career in music. Robert, thank you so much for being here, my friend.
It's awesome to be here. Thanks, Zach. It's good to see you.
Yeah. Okay, well, before we jump in, give me a sentence. What does Solo Parent do, and what makes it so needed right now? Why Solo Parent?
Well, let me start off with a question. And that question is, what if we're solving the wrong problem? Because everyone really focuses on child outcomes like poverty, addiction, mental health, education gaps, but research keeps pointing to the one root factor that shapes all of that, and that is the presence of a stable, engaged parent. So that's the number one predictor of child's long-term success. And yet today, 1 in 3 homes in America are parented by single-parent homes, and they're doing it completely margin, no community. And so that's where we've stepped in. Really, at the end of the day, we want to stabilize the parent so that the kid has a chance to not become one of the tragic statistics coming from these homes.
Man, I mean, this is so true. Maybe give me one little more tidbit, like just on that topic of define that a little bit. What does that mean? Like, do parents need to be engaged? Do both the parents need to be there? Do they both need to be on the same page with how they parent? Like, give me the quick highlight reel of that.
Well, the interesting statistic that actually came out, I believe, last year is that research has shown if a child has one engaged, present parent, it is almost as good as having 2 parents at home. Because a lot of times when there's 2 parents at home, they're not completely engaged. But if you can intentionally engage with your kids and be present, your kids have a fighting chance. And that's kind of what we're all about. Do you want me to talk about what we do?
I would love to hear more about that. And then I want to jump to the marketing question. Like, how did you make this thing work? Like, yes, 100%.
Okay, so very quickly, we offer community. So we have single parent groups, support groups 7 days a week online. We have an app that integrates all of our programs. We have a national podcast. We have daily meditations. And then we have programs that have been introduced, like you talked about, into the military. And most recently, we've been working with the state of Florida and helping their people actually we've been working with the state of Florida, helping the single parents in the state of Florida actually get the support that they need so that we can get ahead of the curve with mental health. There we go.
Man, this is obviously a very near and dear to my heart, being a single dad myself. I'm sitting, my kids are actually here, believe it or not. They're sitting around near me. This one's reading a book next to me. And we were, off discussion, off camera, we were just talking about this. The challenge, I think, especially with single parents, that there's this elevated challenge. I'm an entrepreneur. I worked for myself for 17 years, but going from a 2-parent home where you could sort of share that load to being a single parent dad. It's summertime. I've got my kids for a full week at a time. And if the work that I do does not support my kids as my this is my legacy. This is the only thing that matters in my life, most important thing in my life. What do you see, I guess would be a good question, with single parents and the workload and that stress and managing that stress? And do you guys sort of create resources around that to help them figure out how to navigate that? Because this is hard stuff.
What we have found, and research backs this up, is one of the number one factors that affect single parents is isolation and loneliness. And so just creating these support groups where other single parents, we're not taking a load off them from a work standpoint, but we're giving them a place to share with other people that are going through the same thing. And just that very piece of offering an opportunity and facilitating a group where they see other single parents that are dealing with the same thing It makes an incredible difference in not only sometimes getting tips and getting things that do lighten the load, but also just not feeling so overwhelmed and alone in all of it. Because 34% of American homes are single parent homes. There's a lot of them together. And so one of the initiatives with Solo Parent is how can we bring them together so they're talking to each other, so they're supporting each other. A lot of times single parents don't want to admit the weakness because we've already been beat up. If you've gone through the court system, it's designed to point out all of your flaws. And so we, as single parents, don't often lead with some of the things that are challenging. And so if we can provide a safe, confidential space for single parents to acknowledge that and let that out so that they don't feel so alone, it's incredible what that does, not only to their workload in the sense of their mind space, but also at home. If they have a place, like you said, you don't have a sounding board at home anymore if you're not married. And so just having that camaraderie with other people has been a life changer.
Now, the goal of this 11-minute marketer is to talk about how you grew this thing, but I think this is a subject that is so national. It's so big. 50% of every person that's ever been married has gotten divorced and understands, whether they're people in the church or whether they're people not in the church people or not, it's the same statistic. Yeah. And I know maybe we can just talk about this briefly upcoming here in a second about the military and those heightened statistical problems that they have, which is probably why this has been such a key thing for you guys. But I think understanding this idea that you just mentioned, which is the feeling of isolation and loneliness. In 2024, the Surgeon General said the number one problem facing America is loneliness. And I think you guys have sparked something critical here, and I don't know how you've done it. That's what I'm curious about, and we'll get to that in a second. But tell me a little bit more about that. One, I want to know two things. One, what is the thing that makes people feel like they can talk about that thing? And I know when they do that, they feel more connected. And two, do you see a drastic difference between women being a part of Solo Parent and men? Because to me, I feel like men struggle more with that loneliness side, and you know this better than anyone.
So the ratio of people that come through our doors, so to speak, is about 75% women. But the thing to remember is that it is impossible to be a single mom without a single dad. So there's as many single dads out there. I think that we just don't see dads step up and like want to raise their hand and say, "Look, I'm really struggling." And so the key piece of curing this loneliness is not what we say as an organization or say you should do this, you should do that. Certainly, there's a lot of accusational voices that are going through your head as a single parent. The last thing we need is another to-do list of how you're missing the mark. The key is helping single parents realize that they're not alone in this and that this season can actually be transformational. This came out of my own story. I was a single dad for 8 years, raising 3 girls. And I will tell you that it was the hardest season of my life, but it was also the most important and transformational season of my life. And I had other people that I was able to do this with, and that made all the difference in the world. It didn't bring a companion into my house. It didn't like solve some of these things that are like big deals for single parents. But what it did do is help me feel like I wasn't alone. And I didn't see anything else out there for single parents that met that mark, that actually brought people together. And that was the origin of Solo Parent. I wanted to create an environment and resources, and most importantly, a community that I so desperately needed that I didn't have because there wasn't anything out there, despite the fact that this is such a huge demographic.
Wow. Well, I mean, I think anybody listening to this will resonate because they either have been, they know someone or they themselves have experienced this. And it's huge and it's challenging. I think there's a really challenging piece there, as you mentioned, with men. I think they feel that, but they have a hard time doing what you said, sort of putting their hand up and going, man, I need some help. Yeah. It's difficult. I'm more of a rare breed where I'm more connected to that side. I'm the creator, personality type, but I'm more of that rare personality type. So I totally get that. So let me ask you this, two marketing questions. Yeah. So you mentioned this before, this big win, you launched Solo Parent and you have like a contract as far as I understand with the U.S. military. That's no small thing. So tell me the story behind it. What did you do? what worked? What have you learned from this? Like, how did you get this into an organization that big?
Zach, I wish I could tell you it was some brilliance on our part, but it really did kind of come to us. I think the main thing that I have learned in the last 6 or 7 years since we've been around is just being consistent and getting your name out there. The truth is, the military opportunity came from a Google search. And so I cannot tell you enough how important it is to have your website, your materials, easy to find, because that's what started this whole conversation with the military. And over the last couple of years, that just kind of grew, because in the U.S. military, the divorce rate is twice as high. And they have programs through the chaplaincy within the military to what they call readiness and enrichment programs. So that's things like Stephen Covey and Dave Ramsey, that kind of thing. But they've had nothing in any of the armed forces for single parents. And so that need drove them to try to find me. And then that just grew. The guy that I was working with got transferred to the Pentagon. He brought me up to the Pentagon to present to the Office of the Chief of Chaplains, and it just snowballed from there. I will tell you, it was remarkable how quickly this ignited. Like, I was told when I first met at the Pentagon, good news and bad news. The bad news is it takes forever to get anything approved and sanctioned by the U.S. government, by the Army. The good news, that's the bad news. The good news is that once you're in, it's almost harder to get out, because it's so hard to get in. They just keep using your materials over and over and over. So I would say the most important piece of marketing, it wasn't anything clever. It was just really paying attention to the need out there and hitting it direct on, and making yourself accessible. And that has turned into an amazing contract. We've now trained over almost 100 chaplains just in the last 9 or 10 months, and it continues to grow. I was just back at the Pentagon meeting with the head of the Air Force, and so we are in the Army. Now it's in the approval process to go through to the Air Force, and it just continues to mushroom.
I mean, to maybe congratulate you and pat you on the back, I would say this: Seth Godin says, ideas worth talking about get talked about.
Yes, exactly.
If you have something of value, if you know this is important, this is a need, and from what I understand, because I know we've had conversations in the past, you didn't start this to try to sell something. Mm-hmm. You started this because it mattered, because there was a need there, and you wanted to create a real solution to a problem. Yeah. Meaning, you actually created something worth talking about that was transforming people's lives. And when the right person heard about it with the right connections, and they came back to you and found it, they went, this is the thing that we need. Does that sound kind of like how this is happening?
So well said. You should have answered my question for me, because that's exactly right. If you pay attention to the margins, if you pay attention to the needs out there, you really tune into that, and you create and develop an answer to those problems or an answer to those needs, stick with it, because it will blossom. And that was my experience in the music business too, is paying attention to the things that no one else was paying attention to. And your quote is that's exactly right. You're giving someone something to talk about, and it has to start with your passion. I mean, this isn't just a clever idea. This is very much one of the things that we say a lot as an organization. This organization was created by single parents for single parents. This is not built in a laboratory. This is not just psychological research, and we obviously incorporate all that. But the origin of it is really having been in these shoes and being able to speak the language, so to speak.
This seems to happen on every interview I do, where I have these sort of pre-designed questions I want to ask, and then I switch gears. And for the sake of time, I want to make sure we stay as close to that 11 minutes as we can, but everyone's got about 15 or 16 minutes. But I do want to ask you this. This is what my thought around what's maybe your real secret sauce with what you guys have done from a marketing perspective is being authentic. You're really creating something real. So you're out there, you're doing the podcast, you're going to the Pentagon, you're meeting with the Air Force and the military. Do you feel any pressure to have all of your crap together versus just being an authentic human being that struggles as a single parent? Even though you have your whole organization, it's not easy every day. I'm doing it right now with my own kids. Like a second ago, I was on mute and I was like, London, tell them to be quiet because they're yelling in the other room while I'm on this interview. Like,
Yeah.
give me an idea about the authenticity and how important and key is that to everything that you guys do.
Well, especially in this day and age, authenticity is so important. I mean, we've seen that just in the media world. If you look at network television, is on a downhill slope, while content creators on TikTok or Instagram are on the rise and getting their own TV shows as a result. And I think the reason that that's happening is not just the format, but it's the authenticity. It's not, you can, now that we have video everywhere and we have all these ways to communicate, you can't bluff your way through. And if you make things look too slick, and if you're trying to present as if it's just got all the polish of when I was younger, that was the name of the game. Just make it over the top slick and all that. It's almost the opposite now. So in every conversation, whether it's with a senator, a legislator, or in the military at the Pentagon, it's all about authenticity. And I think you nailed it right on the head. I mean, our consumers in this world now they can smell fake. And they can sense it, and they'll turn it off immediately. And that's why front and center for us is always talking about how we've walked in these shoes and we know it. And it also involves, for us at least, speaking about our own brokenness, speaking about our own vulnerabilities and the things that we went through, leaning into brokenness, leaning into the deficits that we felt as a way to bridge this authenticity gap in saying, oh, if he's willing to admit his struggle, then maybe it's okay for me to admit mine. And that comes back to what you're saying. Authenticity, I think, is the secret sauce.
Well, I would tell you this, of all the events that I've done over the years, I think the ones that had the most impact were the ones where people were authentic and the other people attending felt safe to be themselves. And when people feel safe, they tend to be wide open to transformation. It can happen very quickly. So I would definitely resonate with what you're saying. All right, let's land the plane. Last thing. Imagine someone is listening to this and they're working on their own community thing, something that they're passionate about, maybe some sort of movement. Give me one piece of advice, maybe one small tactic that you think they should do or try, or what's some piece of advice they would get from somebody at your level that they should try and do.
I would say the number one thing is don't hold anything too tight. Like when I started Solo Parent, I thought it was going to go through churches. I never dreamed of working with the state of Florida or working with the Pentagon. That was never on the radar. I had to hold this organization really loose in the sense of I knew our purpose, I knew where we were going, but the way that was going to be either marketed or developed or the channels, I was really open to the way this would go. And so I think that's probably the number one thing is to stay kind of loose. And then also, it ties in with this. Try different things. I mean, especially if you're going into an area that is kind of the Wild West where no one's ever been there before, you're going to have to try a bunch of things, iterate your marketing campaigns. We have changed so much in the last 6 years and continue to evolve. I mean, we just walked through another process of kind of redefining some of our brand scripts and how we're talking to 3 different audiences. And so I think adaptability and flexibility is probably what I would say is the most important thing. Keeping the passion central, but be able to pivot.
Man, this is so good. Absolutely gold. Thank you, Robert, for coming and sharing not just your journey, but some of this marketing wisdom for anybody else that's listening to this that wants to connect. You can follow Robert on LinkedIn. I'll put a link below. Also, go to soloparent.org if you want to check out some of their resources and materials and what they do. If you've got a story worth sharing, DM me or text me. I'd love to feature you on the 11-Minute Marketer. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Thank you, Robert, for being here, my friend.
Thanks, Zach.
All right, thanks.